Okay, so when I'm going to give you guys a scenario. You have come across a car accident and somebody has been hit, they're down, they are hurt. And the person who hit them, let's say they've stepped out of their car, but now they're getting back into their car to leave. What do you address first? The person down or the person who put them down? And what I'm asking is, in cases where we have the ability to lend ourselves, do we jump into being a hero or the healer? I'm sure you can blur the lines and say, well, there's a little bit of both. But when we think of a hero, we're thinking of the person who's stopping the action that's happening, the bad thing that's happening. So that would lend to people jumping towards saying, I'm going to go after the driver to stop them, to keep them from going off. But meanwhile, the healer may look at this and say, I have to save that person. Everything that happens after that will fall in place, but I need to make sure that that person is saved. Now, can a hero do that? Absolutely. Can a healer do that? Absolutely. So I'm not saying there's an absolute in it, but what I'm getting to is this, it ventures into a lot of conversations that I've had where people have spoken about things that have happened to children regarding adults that don't know boundaries. And the first response that I see in a lot of cases is people say what they would do with the gun or a bat or going after that person. And my thought to that, my thing to ask people to consider is, say you do find that person and you take out some sort of vengeance in a heroic way on them. How much of that energy should have gone into healing that child? We're missing the point. We're so blinded by the want to get back that we're missing out on this person has been being hurt. And now we're missing out on the opportunity to absolutely address them. There are other factions, authorities, and time that will take care of what we want to as far as addressing the person that's doing it. Now, I'm not saying if you find somebody in the moment, but again, it should be a quick one, two, and the focus really should be on the person that has been victimized or is surviving said circumstance. And I've gotten a lot of pushback where people say, well, just say you don't want to defend your family if that's how you're going to do it. And everybody has their own way, but I will point out MMA fighter Cain Velasquez. He did the same thing. There was somebody who was being inappropriate with one of his children, and he went and shot at that man in traffic, and he's now in jail for it. And regardless of how we feel about why he was shooting at them, the fact of the matter is he was. Now, this could have gone way worse because he could have missed and hit a completely innocent person. And that's where I'm looking at heroics versus healing. Healing says I can stop this bleeding right now rather than cause extra bleeding just in my own mind, my own sometimes inability to think these things through. And maybe some people have, and that is what they've come to as far as a conclusion. I'm of the mind that violence is not going to solve anything. It's not going to heal that. It could be a child, it could be your sister, it could be a stranger, it could be anybody. It's not going to heal them faster by that vengeance being taken place. As a matter of fact, I believe that there is a case to be made that that happens, and let's say this person now is taken out of the family and incarcerated because of the actions that they took being heroic. Now, whoever that survivor is may feel a guilt because that person went to their defense and went to jail for it when it wasn't an in the moment sort of reaction to have. So a lot of times we may do more damage if we don't really stop and look at the large picture. Now you may have a child who thinks, wow, my dad's not here. One, my dad isn't here. But two, my dad's not here because of something that I did. Because we know a lot of survivors and victims feel like it's their fault. So we have to really be mindful when we're talking about being a hero or being a healer on a much lesser level. I was dating somebody, and when it came to an end, kind of came to an end in a very abrupt way. This person then decided to tell her friends, or a friend in particular, things that had happened or were going on, and they were quite embellished, but we all know how that goes. I think we've all been on one side of that or other, whether we told an embellishment or we heard one and knew it to, maybe not necessarily be true, or we've seen somebody else be embellished on. My point being, his friend jumped to her aid and decided she was going to be the hero, and started coming to me with all of these things that were half truths and not truths. And as I pointed things out, I said, well, that's not necessarily, well, I don't believe that. Well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to believe that. But in the meantime, and here's where I get to that. In the meantime, you're arguing with me when your friend needs your help. Your friend reached out to you to tell you, hey, this is what's going on. I need some help. Your friend reached out to you. So your attention should have been there. I was completely out of the picture. This is a far stretch from saying you've come across a car accident or somebody being assaulted or violated or battery. I was out of the picture. I was completely out of the picture. I was contacted in order for that to happen. And again, that's being a hero, going completely out of your way when the person that actually needed your help was right there with you. Guys, we have to really be mindful in what we want for ourselves, or would say, well, I wouldn't put up with that. Well, that's fine. You may not put up with it, but there are still consequences. And whether the consequences, that's a day, that's a moment, that's years, depending on how heroic you tried to be, you're still taking away from being a healer to the person that you were trying to protect in a heroic way. I'm hoping this makes sense. And again, not everybody's going to agree. I've been told that, I'm scared to do certain things. No, I've just gotten to a point where I think things through a little bit clearer and understand the long term. Yes, sometimes would it feel good to do something in a moment? Not always violent, but would it be good? Would it feel good? Yes, but that's where delayed gratification comes into play. We have to be thinking. We have to be understanding the world is a chessboard, and we need to understand 2-3 moves ahead of time so we don't damage the things that we've already built and amassed. So if you have a family, something happens to one child and you have 4 children, well, now there's 4 children who don't have a particular person in their life because they went in defense. I understand how a lot of people think, and I just don't want to see people destroy their families further than they've already been destroyed, or further leave somebody to have to kind of recover on their own when it's not necessary. If somebody hits somebody in a car, I'm checking on the person that's gotten hit by the car. I'm not going to go on a car chase to stop that person. Hopefully I can remember a license plate, or I can do something. But my point is, when we are trying to do the best for people that we are lending assistance to, our focus needs to be on them. Sometimes, yes, we have a moment and we can be in a circumstance where it is to our benefit to defend them from said person in the moment, but to go out and seek it, I don't necessarily think that that's what somebody needs when they need healing, not heroism. So we can be heroes in the long run in a different capacity, but in that moment when we understand somebody to have been hurt, whether it's emotionally, psychologically, physically, other ways, then we need to focus our healing on them. It'd be like finding somebody bleeding and the person who cut them. Well, if the person who cut them is no longer posing a threat or is walking away, we don't want to chase them down. We want to address that bleeding. What are your thoughts on this? It's just a thought that came to my head, and I had a couple examples. And I thought that I would just, put that out there. So, what are your thoughts on heroes and healers and things like that? And again, there is a gray area between the two. I'm not saying that there's a hard line, but a lot of times I think we get into this pocket of wanting to take something out because we feel a certain way about it. And, that's not the worst thing ever, but sometimes it could be the worst thing ever if we don't really think it through and the long-term ramifications of what that could mean. So I'm going to leave it at that. And don't forget, leave some comments, thumbs up, thumbs down. I won't be mad at you. And as always, I hope this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. Peace, love, unity, solidarity. From subscription, video, and stick around.